figure out how I want to say this sentence. Our hardworking students always follow the rules. They raise their hands to ask a question. All our pupils keep their hands to themselves so they are safe. Going over here, and in my brain I'm saying to the kids, who am I talking about? The students. Well, I already said all the pupils, they are hardworking students. You know what? I may use students again because I used it all the way up here. So I'll start with the word every. I'm going to say every student uses kind words like thank you. So look what I just did. I have my beginning, and then I was thinking, what is information? Every student, and then what about them? Says kind words like thank you. Once I think that sentence sounds pretty good, I go back and I add punctuation. So I'm going to add my capitalization, E for every, and then I'm putting my period there. I go back and I rehearse it again. Our hardworking students follow the rules. They raise their hands to ask a question. All the pupils keep their hands to themselves so they are safe. Every student uses kind words like thank you. I have all my rules here. What do I do next? Well, I could just end my paper, or I could turn around and say to the kids, you know what? I think I'm going to add an ending here. I don't have to do this, but I'm just going to show you what I would do if I want to. The ending is kind of like a conclusion. You don't need to model that to kids right away. I like to do it right at the beginning, just a very simple conclusion. So what I'm going to say is, now boys and girls, our hardworking students follow the rules. They raise their hands when they ask a question. All our pupils keep their hands to themselves so they are safe. Every student in our classroom uses kind words like thank you. Notice I keep adding and changing the sentences, showing how to revise by orally rehearsing it. My last sentence. I think I want to end my last sentence by saying something, how about if I say, welcome to our Peace Builder classroom. I'm going to show all the kids there. And that's kind of a nice ending because I was telling about all the hardworking students and now I'm welcoming the reader. So I go back, I'll add a W for welcome and then a period. We'll go back and reread the whole thing. Our hardworking students follow the rules. They raise their hands when they ask a question. All our pupils keep their hands and feet to themselves so they are safe. Every student uses kind words like thank you. Welcome to our Peace Builder classroom. I planned out my piece of writing using these steps. I orally rehearsed my writing, so I was talking it out as I was putting the plan on the paper. And then the last piece that I would do is I would write in front of the students. I could write in front of the students by just getting out line paper and writing it out as I rehearse my plan. By going, our hardworking students follow the rules. And then I would actually, let's say I have line paper here, be writing our hardworking, and I would actually go through and write that in front of the kids. One of the things that I like to do though, let me erase this, because what I like to do, and I'm going to show you a copy, is I like to make a book. So I go back and I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 sentences in this piece of writing. What I have are 6 pieces of paper that I stapled together. These pieces of paper were blank. I drew a cover, and notice here I have Mrs. Fetzer's Peaceful Pupils. I titled this, I drew the cover, and then I wrote, written and illustrated by Mrs. Fetzer, because this is my piece of writing that I've been modeling in front of the kids. What I'm going to do is I'll go to my plan, I'll read each sentence, and then I will write it on each page, 1 sentence per page. This is actually a completed book where I wrote this in front of the kids. I didn't write out the whole thing. I only had enough time to write a couple of pages in front of the kids, and then I wrote the rest on my own. The drawings and coloring was done on my own, not in front of the students. It just takes too much time. So here I have my book. I have Mrs. Fetzer's Peaceful Pupils. And then I had my first page that I wrote out in front of the students. My hardworking students follow the classroom rules. And then I had a picture there. And I did the same thing for each page after that. They raise their hands when they ask questions. Then I had my picture. So each one of these pages that I planned out on my planner, I actually wrote out and put in a book. This book is then put in a section of the classroom, my own published pieces of writing, a teacher section of the room, and teachers and children can go back to this section in the classroom and read these stories that I've written all year long. So it's a wonderful activity to model in front of the students writing, but also to start developing a little classroom library of your teacher writing and all the different books that you prepare. Again, I like making books because I want to show children how this is my published piece of writing. Later on, when we have our interactive writing, where the students and I together write books, we'll be able to make big books for a classroom library. Students will think writing is fun and exciting because they'll be making these published pieces of writing that are constantly read in their classroom. Let's go back now to our classroom schedule. I also reviewed with you on pages 48, 49, what it visually would look like for a narrative teacher write, where I stand in front of the students, I plan out my story. Here was a published piece of writing. These are the same steps. You plan, you orally rehearse, you write and publish a piece of writing in your teacher write. What I want to show you now is how to schedule this in your week. Please go to page 48 and we'll schedule the teacher write. This is not something that you have to complete in a week. I'm just giving you a weekly schedule so you have a basic idea of how you would plan this out over 5 days. On Monday, regardless of whether this is narrative, writing, expository writing, or opinion writing, whatever you're modeling in front of the kids, you still would use this same exact schedule where you're going to plan, orally rehearse, and write out. On Monday, you would be planning your organizer. And Tuesday, you would be planning your organizer. So I'm going to write plan and talk, meaning I'm going to follow those specific steps to fill in my organizer, and this was the organizer we were using. This is the organizer you would use for a narrative or expository writing, where you're going to plan and talk your story or your information on the organizer. I usually give myself Monday and Tuesday to do that. Sometimes you may need to have Wednesday. Well, then just continue on. But let's just sort of ballpark figure you're using 2 days, 5 to 10 minutes a day, where you'll plan out your writing in front of the students. If you want to know exactly where these steps are for planning and writing your story, if you are looking at the narrative steps, you'll go to page 142 to 144. There's different steps that you could follow for narrative writing depending on what stage you're at. If you are looking at expository writing, then you would go to page 170 to page 173. Monday and Tuesday, we plan and talk, following the steps and making our graphic organizer. These are the metacognitive steps that students need to learn in order to write their own stories or information. On Wednesday, I should have my story done. So on Wednesday, what I would do is I would model writing my story in front of the students. That may take a couple of days, so I may choose to continue writing my story on Wednesday and Thursday. Then I usually tell the kids I've finished writing my story. If I didn't write all the pages in my story, then I tell them I'll do that for homework on Thursday night. On Thursday night, I'll also draw the pictures for each page in that book that I've written. And then on Friday, the students and I will read my story, and then I will officially have it published, where I'll put it in my little section of the classroom, my teacher library, so students can go and read that story or that informational piece of writing over and over all year long. So you have Monday and Tuesday, you plan your story, you're planning and talking. What if you need more time? Then give yourself another day. Then you're writing your story out in front of the students page by page. Now, when you're writing, you're not sounding out the words. What I like to do is have those pages, the blank book, and I just write out a sentence on each page and I write it quickly. What I'm modeling to the students is I'm reading the organizer, and then after I read it and I say the sentence over and over again, then I write it out on the page. And I'm orally rehearsing the organizer, then I write it out on the page. That's very important for the students to see you turn that plan into writing. Let's review this chapter now. We have page 48 and 49 has a visual of what the narrative teacher write looks like from the setup to a published piece of writing. If we turn the page, this is blank now, but I had modeled to you how you would model out expository writing. Over on the next page, on page 51, I've also included another way that you could do teacher write for expository writing. Here I had my big idea box in my plan. Then I had information, information, information. This was a piece of expository writing during my teacher write where I was telling kids how a chick hatches from its egg. So I had how a chick hatches from its egg, and then the details actually needed to be sequenced. So what happens first? What happens next? I drew the pictures, I wrote the signpost words, and had the sentences. Then when I went to go write it out, I just wrote it out on line paper. So I don't always have to make books. And I included that in there so that you can see. You don't have to make books all the time. It's useful many times for kids to see you write just on line paper so they could see the paragraphing, they could see how you have a margin, and they see how those words just go in on one page, how you join one sentence to another on one page. I also wanted to show you here, this was a follow-up activity I did the next week. After I planned my information about a chick, I wrote it out in front of the kids. I then had these little books that the students used for an independent activity where they themselves wrote out the steps in which a chick hatched from its egg. So these activities can also be connected to independent work. It's endless what you can do with it. And notice this was information that was about a farm unit where we were learning about a chick hatching from its eggs. So the information that I'm writing here also will connect to science and social studies. Let's review. Monday and Tuesday, you plan and talk. So you're orally rehearsing your information or your story on an organizer. Wednesday and Thursday is your writing. And when you write, you don't need to worry about how you're telling kids how to spell words. You're just writing it out. You're basically modeling how you're taking the information, orally rehearsing it, and then writing out what you just orally rehearsed, sentence by sentence by sentence. Then on Friday, together the students and you read the piece of writing. If I do have a connection where I have independent work the following week, then I usually show that independent work right after we read my little paragraph or my booklet that we just made, and then I show the kids how next week they get to make their own, and they get all excited. So there's the teacher write. 5 to 10 minutes a day. You can plan, talk, and write out information, stories, opinion writing, and do this throughout the week so that you end up with a final published piece of writing. It's great for the kids to see what a good writer looks like and to model those metacognitive steps.